right, you made it, you made it, you made it. Welcome to our last series or our last entry lesson. I don't think we ever gave this a name, did we? But welcome to the last part of our grit check-in from Embracing Grit for Greatness, my new book that I released in December of 2020 in the midst of a global pandemic. So, yeah, there were some good things that came out of the pandemic. Hi, if you are new, I am Dr. Vernita Glenn White, known as Dr. V. I'm a life strategist and empowerment coach. I am also the CEO and founder of the Vibe Institute, where we help high achieving individuals and professionals vibe higher in their influence, brilliance, and excellence so they can be their most empowered selves. And as a result of working with us, we help those individuals break their personal glass ceilings so they can be their most powerful selves in life and career, and really uncover like those hidden desires and things that they were always deep inside, but been one track minded because we've been so focused on our professional lives and forgetting that we're a whole person over here in these streets. But okay, we're going to talk about our last check-in. If you keep seeing me look up, it's because there's something like outside of my window, and I hope that it is a leaf or some leaves and nothing else. Yeah. So we're going to talk about this last check-in. And again, if you are new, my book talks about 5 characteristics of grit, talking about courage, conscientiousness, endurance, resilience, and excellence versus perfection. And then within those characteristics, I talk about big you and little you. This just for the grit check-in, but throughout the book, I talk about big me and little me also, and talk about my experience and my growth, well, my personal growth journey, and how that helped me to step into another season of my life, step into how to become more powerful professionally, one as a college professor, and then going into really walking to this new business and new arena that I have. So the last time we talked about excellence and big you and how that showed up professionally for you. If you notice the pattern from the previous check-ins, it was like courage was big you, courage, and little you, courage. Resilience was big you, resilience, and little you, resilience. But for this one, it was the characteristic is excellence versus perfection, and then big you was excellence. And then now when I talk about little you is perfection versus excellence. So little you deals more with the perfection. Like I said before, I start with the quote. I also read the actual check-in with you. This is not to insult your intelligence, but is one to keep us on track, keep me on track. And then also, this is my first time rereading my book since it's been released, like since it went to the editor, since it went out to the people, even when I purchased my own copies, I didn't read my book, so this is my first time reading it with you live. And then also some people like, to hear what the author has to say, like the words behind the words, right? So, and then finally I do this because some people may never purchase the book. And if they took the time out to watch the videos or to see the series, I want to make sure that I'm providing as much value as possible. So little you, perfection versus excellence. So perfection versus excellence. Perfectionism is self-abuse of the highest order. Ann Wilson, I think it's Schaef, Schaef. Perfectionism is self-abuse at the highest order. We can stop right there. I want to say, like, before I started reading, I used to wear perfectionism like a badge of honor, like, oh, I'm such a perfectionist, or the perfectionist in me just won't allow me to just do that. And for years I said that, and oh, it has to be perfect. I want to be perfect. And didn't realize like how that created some issues in my life and how that kept me stuck in certain areas. and how that limited a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish in life, and how that just sounds horrible anyway. Like, really, your perfectionism, and we wear that as a badge of honor, like it's a good thing. It's not. It is self-abuse at its highest order. And I know that could be a hard pill to swallow, a tough pill to swallow. Um, some of us, some of us, some of us have gotten fancy and we take our pills with liquid. So that might have been a hard drop to swallow. And it's like, where did that come from? It's not a good thing to be a perfectionist. Now, I do say this in the book that there are some traits of perfectionism, and then some people may disagree. And now, I mean, perfectionism is not great. Like, we don't want to embrace that, but there's just certain things about, I want to make sure that things are good and in order, um, and to be put out. But now it's like, no, we're not claiming any perfectionism as to define us. That's what I want to say. So I don't want to think that I'm contradicting myself. I'm just saying that there are just certain things about perfectionism, and I'll go through them. And I think when I said this, now I'm thinking about it, it really wasn't perfectionism or being a perfectionist. It's more so the excellence, but we're so used to saying perfectionism. But when I read to you about perfectionism, you'll understand more of what I'm talking about. But I just had to say that, like, and that we, including me, used to say that like it was a good thing. Whew. All right, so let me do this. Okay, we all deal with our internal battles in different ways. Maybe your level of perfectionism didn't involve having unmet expectations, defensiveness, being highly critical of others, or battling with low self-esteem. And this is coming from the section in my book where I really take a deep dive into perfectionism. There may be areas in your personal life that you've avoided due to an all or nothing mentality, and that's the one of the bad sides of perfectionism. Now, when I said this earlier, when I was talking about having some traits, going with the attitude of it's all or nothing, like in the good way, right? But the bad side of perfectionism is, if I can't have it all perfect or have it all exactly how I want it, then I'm not going to do it at all, right? So I hope that's clear for you. That's one major trait of perfectionists. It's either your way or the highway. If you're not convinced, think about these questions. So if you're still thinking like, whatever, Dr. V, being a perfectionist isn't a bad thing. All right. Do you get frustrated or angry when things don't go your way? Do you try to control everything or everyone around you to get the results you want? Do you put pressure on yourself to have the ideal life, spouse, home, body, etc.? Do you suffer from doubt? Not that you don't have doubt, because a lot of us, the doubt does creep in, but do you suffer from doubt? Like, you get paralyzed by the doubt. Do you always have to be right? Now, I'm gonna dig a little deeper. I don't think I talked about this in the book, but at first when I wrote this, it was like, oh, I have to be right in situations where I'm talking to someone. But this goes deeper. Like, do I have to be right in knowing all of the steps before I take action? Ouch. Do you criticize or judge yourself for not reaching your goals or failing at something you attempted to do? I used to do that majorly. Like, everything, like I was a loser. I sucked. I'm horrible. I should have been smart enough, to do this. Why didn't I know this? Kind of things in my personal life. Professionally, I do what I need to do. It's almost like you fake it till you make it. And I don't really like that term, but I know where it comes from. But like, so for example, as a college professor, I didn't know everything about the culture of the university and things like that. I was bringing in my experiences from K-12 and when I was in college. And I still showed up like I am the authority of the college professor. I have it all together, but I was still at home, like trying to, put syllabi together parts of the silhouette together every week. They had a shell that was presented, but I was still like putting things together on the fly, or trying to just understand what was happening, having 3 preps and all of that. But I still showed up like, I'm Dr. Glenn White, and this is what we're going to do this week. So that's what I mean. Like, I didn't criticize myself for not knowing. I just made it happen. But there are areas in my personal life where, really, especially with relationships, like, oh man, another one failed. It must be me. Or maybe if I showed up to be perfect, or maybe if I didn't say what I said or did what I did, it would still work. Really hard on myself, because I felt like a failure in that area. And for you, it may not be relationships, it may be finances, it may be your spiritual growth, it may be your health, your wellness. And when I say relationships, it could be friendships or family, and it can also be parts of your business and your professional life as well, right? Because there's something, if you haven't reached a certain level, that it could be a part of that you're criticizing yourself about, and you haven't allowed yourself to go to that next level. So if you answered yes to more than one of these questions, it's a possibility that you suffer from perfectionism, and it's time to be honest with yourself. So going back to our first conversation about courage, this entire personal growth and personal empowerment journey, it involves courage, because no one wants to really look at themselves and say, ooh, we don't like that right there. That's something we got to deal with, or let me take that back. We may know it, but to actually deal with it, to solve that problem, because now we are in control, and we don't get to blame others or other external factors, right? So it takes courage to do that and to be honest with ourselves. Identify some areas where you continue to struggle with being a perfectionist as it relates to yourself and your choices. So now that if you've relinquished and now finally you get that being a perfectionist is not a badge of honor, and you're like, oh, I need to deal with that, and then this part is for you. Imagine if you could manage being a perfectionist in your personal life, how would you show up differently? So in the area of, let's say, finances, and you get upset when you don't do well with the budget, or you overspend in an area, or whatever the case may be, something is just not right, and you're not allowing yourself grace and ease to get in the rhythm of how you handle your finances. But if you stop focusing on, gosh, I have to have the zero balance every month, or gosh, I have to stick exactly to this $25 a week for groceries, or whatever the case may be. But if you allowed yourself, well, you know what? I may have overspent in food, but I didn't go shop as much. you know, you didn't hit the zero balance of the budget, but you didn't blow it out of the water like you normally do. So that's what I mean. If you had, let me finish reading the question. So if you had 5% more focus on being excellent, or being motivated to be outstanding instead of perfect, what would you do? And it's like, if you gave your personal life, or who you are in the other areas of your life, more grace and ease, and embrace excellence, and knowing that you are excellent already and don't have to worry about being perfect, how would your life be differently? And if you haven't noticed the theme, once you deal with little you, big you becomes empowered you. So remember, I told you that my whole story, I've been living this parallel life probably all of my life, but definitely when I became an adult. It's always been a parallel life, and it became more prominent as I went into higher education. And really after the death of my mom and my grandfather. And as I'm doing this recording, I just got over the 9th anniversary, or we just went through the 9th anniversary of my grandfather, and the 9th anniversary of my mom is coming up. They passed 3 weeks apart in the same year. So that sparked a lot. That was a major trigger. And the parallel life had to they started to intersect. And if you know anything about mathematics, parallel lines are never supposed to touch. No matter how close they get, they're never supposed to touch. But I say in the book that mathematics doesn't apply to real life in this situation because my parallel lives, they intersected. And it was a collision. And then at that intersection, I had to decide who was going to win. Was it going to be big me or little me? In order for big me to win, I had to deal with little me. And in the process of dealing with little me, I found empowered me, right? So I wanted you to go through all of these characteristics of grit, and focus on little you and big you, because I couldn't grow big me anymore. I had already obtained my PhD. I had already become a college professor. And there were things that were happening in my life that, okay, career wise, I can't grow anymore. First of all, these people are tripping at this job and they don't want me to grow. And that led me to walking away from the tenure track position. But it was like, after that, what else? I can't get another degree unless I go to law school or medical school, right? Getting these lines on the Vita, which we call in higher ed curriculum Vitas, other professionals call them resumes, because I mean, they're similar but different. But there was, I couldn't do one more conference. I couldn't write one more article. I couldn't speak at on one more stage in academia. I couldn't grow anymore. So that meant I had to fix little me, right? That means I was like, okay, we can't keep going professional. We can't keep doing professional development because that hole is still there. That's why I started with personal development. And when I started feeling that hole, big me grew bigger. And like I said, empowered me. So I wanted you to know that as high achievers, high professionals, there's more to us than our titles and our curriculum vitas or our resumes, our accolades. Those are great and we should embrace it, because I hid from myself a long time. Like, it took me like about 2 years for me to embrace the fact that I'm Dr. Vernita Glenn White, because of everything that came with it. But once we embrace that, no one can take any of our success away from us, any of our titles. We did the doggone thing. We earned every bit of it, whether people say it's obsolete or not. Like, I don't care. Like, people, and I understand why people are saying that, but until they tell me that my PhD and the process that I went through is worthless, that is something that only 2% of people in the world have. And I am grateful to be part of that 2%. So people are, and I talk about this in the book, people are talk about the 1%ers financially. Well, doggone it, I'm part of a 2% club or 1.5%, whatever. It's very small. So I embrace all of that, and you have the right to do that as well. CEO, manager, principal, author, whatever your level, whatever your success is, right? So but that's not all of who we are. I'm reading this book, and it talks about just one of the clients that this person talks about in the book was an ophthalmologist, had a successful practice, $1 million business, and he did it. He was successful, but he sold it so he can go travel around the world to see what's next for him. I don't want us to get to that point where we've maxed out professionally and we have to, and it works for him. So I'm not saying like, don't do that, but what if we were able to still have our multi-million-dollar practices and then find a way to travel around the world and explore other parts of ourselves? Like, we get to have both, right? All right, so I don't want to get too deep. I just wanted to share that with you, and so you can understand my heart and why this is so important for me. If you want to purchase the book, you can go to embracinggritforgreatnessbook.com. It is also available on Amazon, but what I want you to do, why I want you to go to the site, because you can get it through there, is I want you to just read some other information about the book, see what others are saying about the book, And then when you purchase it, I want you to be able to come back to that site so you can input the order code or number and some additional information so that you can get the bonuses that I've attached to the book, as more resources for you and for other ways for us to connect. If you've already done all of that and you're like, Dr. V, what else do you have? You can go to drvernitafreegift.com, and you can get the masterclass and this guide that I created, 10 ways to look good in life and on paper, 10 ways to look good on paper and in life. It ties into being our whole selves. And yeah, and then that'll take you through some steps to connect with us. If you already have a book, take a picture with it and tag me because I want to see it. And then if all of that, you've done that, you got it, you loved it, unless your next steps. For some of you, the book was enough. For some of you, the series is enough. For others, the additional resources are enough. And then some of you will take that next step and be willing to work with me, so that you can be your most empowered self. All right. Thank you so much for staying with me, for joining me. We made it. Yeah, I'm excited to hear from you, and I look forward to seeing your most empowered self in life and career. I am Dr. V. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me, because we are a community of learners, and I will see you next time. Bye.